Welcome back to the Tactical Insight Show here on AFTV. Everyone, Arsenal might not have been their most perfect performance, but wow, did they leave it late and give us the drama and euphoria that we wanted. Maybe not so much the drama, but we certainly enjoyed that moment at the end as Gabriel Jesus and Declan Rice, especially with that second goal, got Arsenal over the line. Declan Rice was phenomenal in midfield, and there were lots of other performances, tactical setups and interesting things Arteta did that in the end got us over the line against Man United, but it wasn't perfect. We're going to break it all down, and I'm here with Mr. Graham himself to talk it all through. Graham, you said you were in the ground and it just must have been electric.
It's a long, tense afternoon, James, ended in happy bedlam, decided by Arsenal's £105 million man, Declan Rice, who took Bukayo Saka's in-swinging corner on the back stick and drove in our deciding goal via a deflection. And that's why you pay the big bucks, James. Big player, puts in big performances and wins big games. And it was funny, you know, because Man United thought they'd won the game. The goal was correctly ruled out for offside by VAR. Arsenal, who were pushing in that last 15 minutes, ultimately got the result they deserved.
I completely agree. I think that line there, ultimately got the result they deserved. I think that is true. And if I'm if I'm showing a field tilt on that opinion, let's say, I'm saying that 51 deserved it to 49. And what I mean by that is, I think Arsenal were quite disappointing in a lot of ways. I don't think they had that fluidity, even though Zinchenko was back. I think we looked a little like we were struggling to create chances, but the ones we did were very good chances. You know, Havertz should score, Saka should score. And so I heard a lot of Man United fans saying that they were aggrieved with some of the refereeing decisions, but we'll touch on one of those a little bit later. But also feeling like Man United actually did enough to come away with a draw, and that Arsenal, you know, were lucky maybe to win that game. Here's what I'd say to that. Were Arsenal stifled a little bit in their play because Man United had a decent setup? Maybe to a degree. But when you look at the chances Arsenal created, when you are not the aggressor, which Man United weren't, you know, Man United played, and I'm going to be really brutally honest about it, they played with the mentality of a team in the bottom half of the table. Let's just sit back, let's not commit too much. The goal they scored was their first, I think you said it was their first entrance into our box.
26 minutes.
I mean, extraordinary. That is not a team that has had a lot of money spent on that squad, that has a manager that's based on possession-based football. And yes, maybe Arsenal weren't at their best and weren't fully deserving of all 3 points, weren't overwhelmingly the better team in terms of the football they played and everything. But Arsenal were the aggressors who were trying for it more, who were the only team I felt who showed the intention to actually win the game. And again, when you look at the chances for Havertz and Saka, you can ultimately say Arsenal did enough to win it. And some of the stats we're going to show, I think, prove it. But do you feel the same?
I do. I think that we played really well in this game. The final touch, the final pass was
Did we play really well?
Well, I thought...
Did we play okay?
But we played a really nice tempo, 1-2 touch, moving the ball around really well. A side that sat in a... two banks of four, ultimately I thought, like a back five at times, with Casemiro sort of like dropping back into a back five, even Eriksen coming back to defend in a six. So they were defending Man United, and they were difficult to play through. They defended very deep with a deep low block. I thought that one or two of the passes up high were just missing on the day. We had a lot of passes in the final third that didn't connect. Yeah. I think that was the difference, why we weren't quite so clinical in creating chances. But overall, I thought the football we played was really good. And what I really liked about the team was we were on the front for the first 20 minutes and they scored against the run of play, playing counter-attack. That's what they came to do, sit deep, play counter-attack, use Rashford's pace. Bad defending by Ben White, I have to say. Should get closer, maybe show him on the outside.
But I think Saliba too. I'd put him in there and Havertz shocking on the pass.
But the thing I liked about it is we went one down and we weren't affected. Yeah. And you're going to be brilliantly breaking down the equaliser. And we played a brilliant passing move. And Zinchenko's rolling that we discussed today. But I thought we weren't affected. And we went straight on the other end and scored a great goal.
And I think some of the match stats prove a little bit what I'm saying. Look, they had 2 shots on target from their 10 they had in the whole game, Man United. We had 17 shots. We were 55% possession, but for a lot of that game we conceded possession. We're going to touch on that in a bit. More passes and the XG of 2.53 to their 0.98. Again, it shows that the quality of chances we created against a team that did defend well. I'll give them credit for that. They were disciplined, sure, but I was just disappointed with how much they actually threw at us the other way in terms of, as a neutral, I'm an Arsenal fan, but a neutral watching that would think, really? You know, you've got all this firepower. You've got a £90 million winger. You've got Rashford, who's supposedly one of the best wingers in the league, you know, and you're not going to throw a little bit more than you did. But again, on the match stats in general, we came out on top. Attacking stats, 64 final entries to their 30, 63 deep touches, 25 zone 14 touches to their 9, and a field tilt of 75%, which shows you that, again, the football was played in the half that Arsenal largely wanted it to be. And the defensive stats, 11 tackles to their 15, 8 interceptions each. They made 28 clearances to our 8. And we had 18.4 passes per defensive action to their 24.9. Very high with both. I want to touch on a little bit why and what Arsenal did off the ball, which was different to what they normally do. I do just want to say this. You sent me this from XG Philosophy, which I think is brilliant. Gabriel Jesus' dummy for his third goal, you know, the little cutback on his left that sends Dalot flying. I hear he's still sliding now. You know, the shot on his left in that position with the defender coming is a 0.25 XG chance. But when he does that dummy and sets it onto his right, it goes up to 0.75 XG, which I think is just... It's so interesting in terms of your understanding of XG, because Vieira's pass is good, but Jesus has a lot of work to do. So actually the whole chance in itself, it is a good chance, but he has a lot of work to do to make it a great chance, and he does that brilliantly, Jesus.
He does, and I think you have to give enormous credit to Fabio Vieira because his impact again when he came off the bench was reflected in another assist. He scored now 4 Premier League assists for Arsenal.
Yeah.
And he's up there with assists created for the club since he arrived at the club. You know, I think there's only 2 players who got more assists with him in all competitions. So he had an immense impact when he came on, and that was a great pass. The vision and the way he played it.
It looks simple, but it's not.
It looks simple, it's not. It's just way to perfection. And Gabriel Jesus, get it right, showed the value of being two-footed. The way he's able to sort of like switch it from left to right and tuck it away superbly. And in the end, you know, as I said, up to the 90th minute, it was a tense day because I thought we were on top in the game, but we were struggling to just win the game, which I thought we deserved to do. United then thought they'd won the game with the breakaway goal, which was a good passing move, to be fair, but Garnacho was just offside. And then we went down the other end and scored those 2 goals.
So let's talk about what Arsenal wanted to do. You've got them in the attacking shape here, which again becomes the back 3, but crucially Gabriel returns, Zinchenko returns as well. So what was different for Arsenal?
I think the key was obviously Gabriel coming back with Saliba. That's the back 3 that we were using for much of last season. But the thing that I noticed was the performance of Zinchenko. Coming in, giving us that balance on the left-hand side, and also we're able to create immediately that box midfield. When you've got Zinchenko on the left, Rice on the right, then you've got Havertz at the left centre mid and Odegaard on the right. So we've got our box midfield back, and it also gives us an overload around their midfield, Casemiro and Eriksen. So much so that Ten Hag was immediately making changes to his side in game. So Anthony, who was hugging the touchline out here.
Yeah, try again.
No,
if you lift it off, there you go.
There you go. He was obviously told to come in and sort of try and stop Zinchenko and build up, I felt. And Fernandes was also dropping back.
Keeping an eye on Rice.
On Rice. So immediately, because the introduction of Zinchenko gave us more balance on that left-hand side, and immediately Man United tweaked it slightly. But then I noticed that the changes between Zinchenko and Rice. Zinchenko was coming over to the left, and Rice, to the right, and Rice was coming over to the left. Immediately, that was the flexibility of Zinchenko immediately coming back into the team. He sort of like helped us have that box midfield. He was able to switch positions and advance the play from the right hand side, and I think that gave us a bit extra in our build-up shape, which we were probably lacking in previous games. But I think the key to this really was once we went 1 down, is Zinchenko then moves over up high. Rice then comes over here. Anthony, who now would normally be out here marking, has now been dragged in field. So we've gone 1 down. We kick off and put together that brilliant passing move where Zinchenko and Martinelli play a lovely 2v1 round Bissaka to create the goal. So Zinchenko was very influential, I thought. His performance couldn't be understated. Came back in to help the box midfield, was rotating with Rice to help penetrate the ball, and also then drifted out wide to play with Martinelli up high and led to our equaliser. The other thing I noticed was the return of our triangle up high. This is what I craved for. I talked about last week that we've been missing. When White plays in the middle, he doesn't play out here. When he comes out here into this shape, we've got like our little triangle there on the right hand side. So much so that Eriksen was having to come back to defend in this area here.
Yeah.
So you had a situation really in Man United in the first half that we were trying to build up to have a 5v4. Ultimately, they were defending in a 6 against our 6. So you got our 6 lanes here. And basically they were defending in a 6, literally. Casemiro was trying to pick up Havertz and Eriksen was trying to mark Odegaard. Now, in our build-up play, I'll give enormous credit to Eddie Nketiah in this game because I think it went a bit under the radar, Eddie's performance yesterday, because I thought he was influential in the build-up because he was trying to drag Lindelof out to create spaces for Havertz to run in here or even Odegaard to come in here. So I thought Eddie had a brilliant performance yesterday to help the build-up shape. We didn't make the most. We created chances. Havertz had a great chance where he scuffed his shot, should have scored. And I thought the team looked better balanced yesterday. We went more down the left-hand side, slightly more down the right-hand side, but we had our right-hand side triangle back, James.
Yeah, we really did. And off the ball, I thought Arsenal were interesting as well, because if we just open this back up and get the teams back in their positions, off the ball, we saw something interesting. I want to show you all this graphic, everyone. These are Manchester United's 284 attempted passes in the first 45 minutes. There's the whole first half. And it's staggering how many were just in their half. And you can see the minute they venture just beyond the halfway line, they really struggle to get it right. Very, very few in that zone. Well, I think one in that zone 14 area we talk about. Very few in kind of 10 spaces, attacking midfield spaces. Arsenal had them sort of camped. And I was on United View doing the tactical view with Cams, and I was saying it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal actually invited United to have a little bit of possession. We haven't seen Arsenal do that before, but I just thought, you know, we know what United's bread and butter is. If Arsenal press them all over the pitch, but they get it wrong, United will cut through, especially because they've got a fantastic distributor in Onana. So when they had the ball, let's just give a ball to, there we go. Let's give a ball to Lindelof, right? And you're moving them forward into position, however that might look, all right? Casemiro, Eriksen. Normally you're used to seeing, you know, a press, maybe Havertz and Nketiah, and at times you did. At times there was a little bit of a man marking job, whatever it, you know, wherever it might look. I'm sort of making up on the spot. You get my point. But actually, once they sort of did start to venture further forward, Arsenal were happy to just drop into more of a 4-3-3 shape and understand the men they were meant to pick up. So as United sort of come forward a little bit, again, just trying to get them more forward, would help if the ball moves. There we go. Lindelof. Arsenal were very happy to stay quite camped in their half and basically say, what have you got? And United had very little. They had so much of the ball. We've shown the passing there, but Arsenal were very happy to basically just say, we'll stay condensed. And when you enter this area and you start to come into our half, we'll finally engage with you. And I thought that was interesting from Arsenal and Arteta, that they took a more standoffish approach. They pressed at times, but they picked their moments very carefully.
Yeah, I think what United have got now with Onana,
yeah,
they've got somebody now who's playing almost like an outfield centre half, and in that first half I think Arsenal noticing that when we were trying to press it, they were sort of like playing it around to play around our press very well, because they've got this man now who's very good on the ball. But I think what Arsenal quickly learnt was they're not doing a lot with it going forward. So let's just back off a little bit, sort of like give them the ball, let them have it in areas they're not hurting us. And I think that was a key part of the game in the first half.
And when did they score? Transition.
Well, that's only because Havertz made the loose pass. And basically Eriksen, I have to give credit to Eriksen, it was absolutely brilliant ball for Rashford.
Yeah, it was a brilliant ball. It's time to start praising this man, Declan Rice. I can't believe nearly over 10 minutes into the show before we mention, I mean, I guess we have mentioned it, but we need to really go into it. Now, I'm going to say something crazy here, because he played as the 6 and he was brilliant. I think he's an 8, and I'm going to explain why I think he's an 8 in a sec. But sticking it to the tactical pad, when we did have the ball, and you mentioned us brilliantly in possession, let's just move the players up the pitch a little bit. Havertz, he plays this slight ghost role, you know, I'm making runs into the box, you know, I'm supposedly pulling players away, I'm not seeing it that much, but that's what we keep being told. And it leaves Rice with an incredible amount of space to cover. I mean, literally, when this team, you know, when they are looking to counter Man United, we see that Rice has honestly got to cover all this ground on his own. And yes, Zinchenko is there and might sort of be there as a two-man shield as well. But largely, he's thinking about getting back to left back. And Rice was winning so many tackles just by getting stuck in those areas. And funnily enough, when they score is actually the moment where I think he goes to press, but he's basically caught out of midfield. And when Havertz has the ball in this area, it's the loose pass that then Eriksen is happy to get a hold of. But I just thought the amount of ground Rice had to cover was extraordinary, Graham.
Not just the amount of ground he had to cover, the amount of ball progression that we relied on him to do in this game. Because I felt, because Havertz dropped back, because that was what happened with the ball progression. Because Zinchenko came up high and wide a lot in this game. Havertz dropped back into the pivot with Rice. And Havertz, the advantage of that is that Zinchenko and Martinelli worked well against Wan-Bissaka, who I thought defended really well in this game against Martinelli. Martinelli, I thought, was back to his electric best in this game. He was on fire. But that was a great battle between Wan-Bissaka and Martinelli. But Zinchenko was getting up high to try and support Martinelli. So he's now not in that centre mid to progress in the pivot. So now Havertz dropped back there. I think probably to try and draw out Casemiro as well. Casemiro was following Havertz for most of the game. But we lost a lot in ball progression because we lost Zinchenko, Zinchenko loves to progress from that area. So he's gone out wide now. Havertz is not a great ball progressor. And that left a lot of onus on Declan Rice, not only to cover this ground, and you're going to show his heat map and touch map in a minute to prove just how much work he did, but he was the one progressing the ball. He had an absolutely outstanding performance, not just in sort of defensive duties, in ball progression and getting up to support the attack. He made lots of runs into those areas.
He did,
and when Arsenal, another tactic Arsenal used, which was highlighted on Match of the Day 2 last night, was Arsenal overloaded the back stick from corners, and Rice was frequently at the back stick. So he was absolutely influential in all areas of the pitch, James.
And I think, what you mentioned earlier about Zinchenko coming out to the right at times and Rice playing out to the left. And actually, we're going to show you this Zinchenko touch map on screen right now. You can see that there are touches out to the right, quite frequently. Yes, majority left. He was a left back. But how often he came to the right side of central midfield. I think a part of that was totally on purpose, because as Martinelli hugs the touchline and Havertz is trying to make runs and get into that forward line, I think they know that if they lose the ball here to Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Casemiro, you want Rice there covering. And so it was almost a counter-press tactic. They're thinking 2-3 steps ahead. We want to play, we want to progress, we want to make our way forward, we want to get our lanes of fire, but if we get it wrong, we've got the right people. And then you did see some of the sort of crunching tackles, didn't you, that allowed Arsenal to then get back into play. So I thought that was all very kind of calculated, and while Arsenal weren't playing their best football, tactically some of the stuff was really fascinating. Now, I mentioned Rice being an A. Let me just go through his numbers to show you why I think he's an A and why I think he's so complete. Pass accuracy of 88%, 85 touches, progressive carrying distance, 340 yards. Final third passes, 10, 5 progressive carries and 5 progressive passes. Also 5 ball recovery, so he's doing everything to get us forward, but he's also winning the ball back. 3 blocked passes, 3 aerial duels won, 2 interceptions, 1 tackle and 1 goal as well. We can now show you on screen his touch map, absolutely everywhere. He's actually touching the ball more in the attacking third than in the defensive third. He's not just a ball winner, destroyer, all that. He influences everything going forward so much. We'll show you his heat map, which only sort of supports the touch map. You can see it there. But then I also want to show you this that comes from @MarkOurStats, a really great graphic. It tells you where Rice ranks compared to everyone on that pitch, Arsenal versus Manchester United, for progression via carries and progression via passes. He is absolutely up there. So you might think, well, if he's been that good and he's done it from the 6, James, why on earth would you move him? Because I think this man, Kai Havertz, is still struggling. And I also want to say that I don't think Arsenal were brilliant in this game. I actually thought it was about a 6 out of 10 performance from Arsenal, and I think that's considering the fact that Man United, finished third last year and are quite stern defensively and all that. I think in a game where Jorginho or Partey is sitting, you can allow Rice to go and press onto that front line, to go and try and chase and win the ball back high up the pitch, like he did against us when we drew 2-2 with West Ham, knowing there's someone sitting and protecting. And so when Havertz got that pass wrong because Rice is up the field, that's okay, there'd normally be a sitter. I just think he's so complete. And then he gets the goal. He does really well on that goal to take it the way he did. He looked the most likely to actually get us into the final third and make something happen in terms of us getting into the penalty area. I would want to let him do that with more freedom rather than have him sitting back.
Fair argument. I think the counter argument is that he's also very good here. Sitting, directing the play.
He's brilliant at it.
We saw it in the game when Ben White went high and Saliba come across to the right, and he was sort of like picking the ball up here central.
Yeah, he was doing that.
So he was bringing the ball out, and that's another. He's got so many great skill sets. He can play 6, he can play 8, and he's playing both, James. He's playing 6 and he's playing 8, isn't he?
He is.
So why move him up to 8 when you can have him playing 6 and playing 8 in the same role? All you've got to do in this fluid system is somebody to drop back to cover him when he goes high.
I agree, but if I flip it for you, right? So let's get Thomas Partey in that team. So Zinchenko's your right back, Rice is your 8, and Partey's your 6, okay? And it'd help if he's fit. But Jorginho, okay, who's to say, for everything you said about Zinchenko helping higher up, who's to say that Partey and then Rice doesn't just drop back and become a part of the build-up anyway at times, with Martinelli coming inside as we've seen loads of times, and Zinchenko going high and wide like we've seen at times. I just think he's made for it, for everything we want from our 8, which is get forward, support the attacks, be a battering ram at the back post when we put cross into the box, be a presser who gets forward, but also drop back and help him build up in case we need to mix up with Zinchenko and Martinelli. I just think he's tailor-made for it, and Arteta, I think, is letting us know, I see him as a 6, that's how it's going to be, and I get it. Some of the defensive work he did was unbelievable, but I just think he is the perfect 8. I really do.
Look, it's a great argument you make. We've got 8s who can come in and play that role. Fabio Vieira came off the bench yesterday and looked absolutely brilliant. Yeah, Smith Rowe. Where are these 8s going to get their minutes if you're playing, if you're playing Rice at 8? And the other thing is, Havertz was poor yesterday. He missed a poor shot. He gave away the ball that led to their goal. But he had one great run in the box, and that's what Arteta sees for him, doesn't he? And
I've taken him off.
You're taking him off the screen for me. Yeah, I want him back on the screen, James, if you could.
Let's get Havertz.
But the point is, we haven't talked about the VAR decision that went our way in the second half. But we had one that went against us when he makes the run in between Casemiro and Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
If I just move in over there and move Wan-Bissaka back, and they literally between them foul him.
Do you think it's foul? Do you think it's pen?
It's a pen for me. It's a soft pen. You could argue it's a soft pen, but then it's exactly the same as what Rashford got against against Forest last week. So it was a pen and it was overturned. And the thing that annoys me about VAR, James, is VAR is not there to referee the games. It's there to overturn the clear and obvious. That wasn't a clear and obvious overturn. So that's what Arteta wants from Havertz. He wants him in here. It's just not happening for him. What he needs more than anything at the moment, Kai Havertz, he needs a goal. If he gets a goal, you just hope then that the whole burden will lift off him, the shackles will be lifted, and then he'll be the player that Arteta wants. But at the moment, I agree with you, he's not doing enough to stay in the team. There's an argument he should be taken off the board, out the team, and then eased into the team, which I know Robbie's made a good argument for on AFTV. And when we got players like Smith Rowe, Vieira, and even Declan Rice, who can probably play that role better than he's playing at the moment, there's an argument for it.
That burst into the box that nearly won us a penalty, I just think Rice can do that. And then the other thing, and my final push for Rice as the 8 is, Ødegaard I don't think was at his best yesterday. He was good, he was very good, and it was a very good goal, but his pressing was unbelievable. And what I'm seeing is Ødegaard and Havertz alternating with the press, because depending on which side it is, one goes and the other covers and all that. I'd love to see, even though we didn't press that much in this game, when we were chasing it late, it was Ødegaard really, driving us forward. And I just again think that you allow Ødegaard to get forward and get into these more attacking areas, and players attend drifting right rather than like as a genuine number 8, and I think you want to allow him that freedom for 2 reasons. One, because of this stat you sent me, a big thanks to you, Graham, that only 5 players have scored more non-penalty goals than Martin Ødegaard in the Premier League since the start of last season, and the 5 are all strikers, as you mentioned: Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Mo Salah, Marcus Rashford, Callum Wilson, and Martin Ødegaard. So by the way, non-penalty goals since the start of last season: Rashford 18, Martin Ødegaard was 16. That is a phenomenal bit of output, and it feels like this is the time to talk about his goal. And these are the areas I want him getting in. And he did it so often last season. I remember 2 goals against Chelsea where he made this run. Teams aren't picking him up. Now we've got Gabriel on the ball, and you broke it down brilliantly. Zinchenko now is recognising to go high and wide and help Martinelli here. We've just conceded. This is the first action since conceding the goal. So Gabriel goes into Martinelli, and flicks out to Zinchenko. Now this shape is proving everything you were saying. As Zinchenko comes wide, Havertz is coming into the double pivot role with Rice, and so Martinelli's holding that width. Perfect. Everything that we've illustrated, you're seeing it in this goal. He flicks it Martinelli out to Zinchenko, and then at this point here, Man United made a little bit of a mess of it, because now we've got that overload on that left-hand side. Wan-Bissaka knows he can't not engage with Zinchenko, but he's going to have to leave the danger man Martinelli. Lindelof, who'd been close to Nketiah early in the build-up, is now thinking, well, I've got to get across to Martinelli, and then that puts pressure on Martinez to follow Nketiah. So he creates a big mess. And Man United fans were blaming Christian Eriksen, and I understand, because ultimately he's Ødegaard's man. And when it comes back to Ødegaard, he should be there. But you're going to see in a sec that as Arsenal work this brilliantly, the space opens up at centre-back and someone's got to fill it. So I don't blame Eriksen massively. He goes into Nketiah, one touch into Martinelli, and if we just stop there, look where Lindelof and Martinez are. They've been marking the same man. Then Casemiro's coming back to mark the same man. I mean, it's a joke defensively. And then he opens up his body, helps if I could, there we go, and rolls it to Ødegaard. And at that point, Eriksen is worried about getting back to centre-back and covering that space. And so Ødegaard gets left. But Arsenal worked it brilliantly, and it's all because of the tweaks. So normally it's Havertz in the Martinelli space, normally it's Martinelli in the Zinchenko space. But here, they mixed it up, and it caused the United defence a load of problems because they didn't know how to reshuffle and readdress the fact that Arsenal had positionally completely changed it up.
Yeah, and the key for me in this goal is the 2v1 overload out wide, Zinchenko up high with Martinelli against Wan-Bissaka. And I think the pass from Eddie is a good pass. And then Martinelli, a superb rollback to Ødegaard. Eriksen, as you say, has had to come across because the centre-backs have come across. I thought this goal showed, although we weren't quite at our best and fluent best in the final third with the final pass, this showed what the team is capable of, James. Fluent football, putting players in position on the pitch where they can express themselves, and great one-touch, two-touch passes to open teams up. Now, a lot of criticisms of Eriksen, but that move was so swift and slick, and it put Ødegaard in a position. The moment that attack opened them up, you could see we scoring, and Ødegaard, a sublime finish.
Yeah, it really, really was. Let's talk about Martinelli's numbers very quickly, because it's a lovely flick there. He had a fantastic battle with Wan-Bissaka. I thought that was one of those where both will say they played well. They're so good at what they do.
Great battle.
It was a fantastic battle.
I was in the stadium yesterday. I love that battle. Wan-Bissaka, so good defensively, one-on-one. And Martinelli wasn't deterred. He kept taking him on. And Wan-Bissaka kept tackling him. But it was a great battle. Martinelli gave as good as he got. So did Wan-Bissaka. It was an even battle.
And they both had moments.
They both had moments.
And
Martinelli, obviously, with the assist, will say that he created the assist for the equaliser. But I thought it was a great battle. And Martinelli, I thought, was on fire yesterday. We've been criticising him. He's been a bit of a slow starter in the Premier League campaign. But I thought he was back to his best yesterday.
Yeah, he was fantastic. His numbers here, 87% pass accuracy, 66 touches, 6 ground duels won. You never fault his work rate and defensive work. 5 dribbles completed, which shows you that he did have a lot of joy on the ball, carrying it forward. 3 crosses, 1 key pass and 1 assist. Fantastic from him. 2 more things to touch on very, very quickly. Things that swung the game back in Arsenal's favour. Got to talk about the substitutions first.
What their ones? Evans and Maguire.
Well, I gotta say, let me not.
Rolling back the years there.
Yeah, let me not. So the players that came off, Zinchenko, Nketiah, Havertz, Martinelli. I think that's it, but Jorginho comes on later, but that's actually when we've got the goal. So the changes they make, Tomiyasu comes on, I thought did brilliantly. Was really good at winning the ball high up the pitch to ensure we sustain possession. He was winning the ball in this. Let's get this square. In this cluster. Do you know what I mean? Just ensuring we kept winning the ball in that area of the pitch. Tomiyasu did really well. Let's move him back to left back. So Tomiyasu comes on. Then the hero against Fulham. I say hero, we didn't win, but he played very well. Fabio Vieira comes on. We then see Gabriel Jesus, of course, versus Reece Nelson. There we go. I thought Martin was unlucky to come off. I thought it actually should have been Saka, but I'm not going to complain. It won us the game. And Jesus as well. And I felt every single one played their part. Jorginho came on later and actually did well when he came on. But in terms of trying to get us the win, Tomiyasu, Vieira, Jesus and Nelson all did a fantastic job. Nelson was so urgent. Every time he got the ball, it was whatever I'm doing it quickly. Sometimes he lost the ball, but it didn't matter because he was asking questions and creating chaos. Jesus, give it to me, I'll pin, I'll spin, I'll dribble, and I will get us into dangerous areas that again cause chaos. Fabio Vieira, not as chaotic in terms of trying to make stuff happen, but maybe not even as direct and cutting as he was against Fulham, but did everything, touch, bam, pass, let's move, let's keep going, let's keep them thinking. And Tommy has to ensure that they could do their football while staying in that third. I thought all of them had a fantastic impact. And while I'm a little critical of the performance, and Arteta takes a little responsibility for that, persisting with Havertz and all that, once again, his subs won us the game.
He did, and I think in the last 5 or 6 minutes of full time and then the 10 minutes of injury time, we were on the front foot with those changes, and they definitely sort of like gave us a great way to finish the game. And we ended up, if anything, sort of like dominating the play in the final third of the pitch. We were sort of like, they only had something like, and I think you might have the stat here, something like 7 or 8 touches in our final third in that last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas we had about something like 45 touches. So, and that,
You're right.
because of the likes of Vieira, Nelson and Jesus. I just love the way he muscles defenders out of the way, and I think Vieira, that little technician, and also his progressive carries. He's able to carry the ball, and he's great in situations where the game's more open, broken play, where he can influence the game. He's got a great eye for a pass. And I thought you were right. Nelson, when he came on, was great. You know, he's very direct running, and I think we ended the game really well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then I mentioned there was a second moment that we need to talk about that obviously went our way and probably swung momentum back in our favour. We weren't actually doing that well the last 20 minutes in terms of sticking on Man United. In the 88th minute, Garnacho rolls into the back of the net. He's offside. Ever since, well, the stats after that Garnacho offside goal, and this is what you're referencing, Arsenal had 8 touches in Man United's box to Man United's 1. In our box, 45 touches in the final third to their 8. 3 shots, 2 goals, 0 shots, all goals for them after that moment. They didn't recover, and Arsenal took the momentum and went for it. The other thing I just want to say, TalkSport, they got in touch with the PGMOL and got a quote with them on the Garnacho stuff because Erik ten Hag was moaning. Now, we sometimes talk about refereeing decisions, not too often, but the reason I want to mention this is because I am super critical of referees, I'm super critical of the PGMOL and VAR, but I'm going to give them some credit here because when they came out and explained this to TalkSport, I actually thought, I haven't got the exact quote, but I actually thought their reasoning in terms of putting fans' minds to bed on the offside was really, really good. Man United fans, or some of them, not all, were saying, I think he's onside there, Garnacho. And it doesn't help that the manager, Ten Hag, then comes out and says, they've looked at the wrong angle, Garnacho's onside. Load of rubbish. The PGMOL have 5 camera angles that are all calibrated, so they find the best angle with the best view. And when they pin the player lines up against each other, they have got as much scientific factors they can bring together in that moment to determine exactly when the ball has left the player's foot for the pass and when the run has been made and where they line up across the dead straight line using Hawkeye and stuff that's used in tennis and all that to show where Garnacho is in relation to Gabriel. He's offside, end of argument. They have got, and I'm critical of so much they do, but a lot of that stuff is subjective stuff that I believe they should be using their brains to get right. It might not be perfect scientifically, but it's used the exact same way to measure every single offside in football, and the one thing is it's consistent, and I thought it was crazy that Ten Hag even had a moan about it.
Well, I think Ten Hag really was out of order. He questioned so many decisions yesterday. Looked like a really sore loser to me.
Yeah,
I think he should question the way his team's not functioning. And I know you work with Flex and United View, but is it United View?
Yeah,
United View. Yeah, they've got so much talent in that team. They've got a £70 million winger. They've got Bruno
and
Fernandes.
Another one at home who doesn't train well, apparently.
Yeah,
their manager.
and that's what's going on there with Sancho. And Rashford, who's a top player. Martial, obviously, is not so great as he was, maybe, but the guy they brought on yesterday, the new forward, looked really good physically.
Yeah, he did really well.
And they've got good players in that team. So why, the questions have to be asked, Man United fans, tell me, why do you need to come and play and just play counter-attack with that type of attacking talent you've got? You've spent over 100 and something million. I know Mount was missing yesterday. You bought your new goalkeeper who's very good at playing out. You bought your new forward, obviously he's got to be integrated into the team. But you've still got good players in this team.
But also,
and to have them sort of like playing so deep, so negatively, I think Ten Hag, was deflecting away in his post-match interview from the fact that they were played so poorly. He said in front of Roy Keane that he thought they played really well. I bet Roy Keane was thinking differently, and he was biting his tongue a bit because I didn't think Man United played well in that game.
I don't, and the thing is, you can be pragmatic, you can play counter-attacking football, that's fine, that doesn't make you negative necessarily. It's what you do then when you get the ball and when you do have your opportunities, and I felt they did so little in terms of throwing punches at Arsenal that quite frankly, you can come to the Emirates to concede possession, you can hold a good shape, and in some ways they did that well, but I'm so with you. I think, how about looking at the fact that for all the talent you got on the pitch, you threw so little at Arsenal, whether it's via having 70% of the ball and controlling the game, or whether it's sitting on the counter-attack. I think they'll be so disappointed with how little they actually threw. Granted, the last 20 minutes, as we got leggy, they started to open us up, but I can only think of one Saliba block.
They had the the chance, the double chance when Rashford and Martial. Martial had a shot that Ramsey parried out, and Rashford then had a shot that was blocked. But apart from that, I mean, and the offside goal, I can't remember him creating very much, even in the first half, bar the Rashford goal. Yeah. They literally came to defend and just play counter-attack, and it's disappointing when you've got players of that calibre that you want to play like that. And I thought they played very similarly, as Robbie said, to the way Nottingham Forest set up against
And
us.
Arsenal, and let me say, Arsenal weren't great, but at least they played for the 3 points, and that is why ultimately I agree we deserve to come out with the win.
Whatever, even when we're not at our best, we still try and play our football, don't we? That's what I like about this team. I'd rather be Arsenal any day of the week than Man United playing like that. And if I was a Man United fan, I think instead of sort of like justifying the fact that Arsenal, the performance round up decisions that went Arsenal's way, you need to be asking serious questions of why your team under this manager is playing, in my opinion, in such a defensive way. It beggars the belief to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. The roundup stats, take it away.
Roundup stats, James. Arsenal have won 3 consecutive Premier League home games against Man United for the first time in the competition's history. Arsenal conceded from the very first shot they faced in the game yesterday, and that's the 7th different Premier League game now where they've conceded the first a goal from the first shot that they've had to face. That's more than any other club in the Premier League. Gabriel Jesus continued his incredible run of never losing a Premier League game in which he has scored. That's 57 games now. Bukayo Saka, who many felt didn't have his best game yesterday, still created more chances, 5, and the most final third passes, 22, than any other player in the game.
Nice, fair play to him.
Missing out through injury, Thomas Partey has started just 64% of Arsenal's Premier League games now since he joined the club. That's one unbelievable, isn't it? And then finally, there have now been 55 goals in the last 13 Premier League games at the Emirates Stadium. That's almost 4 a game, with 5 of those coming in the first fixture in that run, and that was a 3-2 win by Arsenal in January over who do you think that was? Back in January when we got off that run?
Man United.
Man United.
There we go.
So, well done, you never let me down, did you?
Took me a second there. Graham, you've been fantastic as always. Everyone, hope you've enjoyed the Tactical Insight Show. What did you make of Arsenal's performance in general? Some of the tactical tweaks. Still feel like Arsenal have levels to go up here, but one thing that hasn't dropped from last season, even though the general on-the-ball performance might have, the grit and determination to win, and that never say die attitude, and that going to the very, very last minute, that hasn't left this squad, even with all these new players. Fair play to Declan Rice. I think this was the match where he said to everyone, I am a £105 million player, and there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit the like button if you have, subscribe to AFTV, and we'll catch you all very soon.